Do you know your blockchain basics? Today on Crypto for Christians, we're going to talk all about layer 1 solutions and even some layer 0 solutions. It's Technology Day on Crypto for Christians, and we're going to dive all the way in. As you know, I'm Alex, a crypto enthusiast. I'm here with Pastor Rick. How are you doing, Rick?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thanks so much for being here with us and sharing all your great knowledge. I know I sure need to know a lot more about what you've been talking about. I have been a bit mystified since our last session. So please feel free to jump right in and give us a little more idea about what all these different layers are about.
I sure will. And so last time we talked about the role of community in eventual blockchain adoption. We talked a lot about the Cardano blockchain and how the Cardano community is a very large community of enthusiasts who really believe in the program. They believe in what the program is designed to do. They look forward to a time when more and more people can have first world level banking services, first world level record keeping services, all provided not by some giant corporate behemoth, but by a blockchain. And this community is very, very important to the eventual adoption of the blockchain. And a very good metaphor that we probably used in our last show is something like Apple. Now, of course, Apple is a big centralized company, but what they have are a lot of very devoted customers. I don't mind telling you that my wife of 27 years is a very devoted customer of Apple products. She loves everything Apple, and she basically rejects everything non-Apple. So it wouldn't matter to her if Samsung or another company came out with a better phone or a better computer. She wants an Apple. That's what she wants, and in my house, that's what she's going to get. And so that's the way community works, and it really is an important factor when it comes to adoption. That said, the other important factor would be technological superiority. And as much as Apple people do love Apple, Apple has also done a good job of staying pretty much on top of technology. They pretty well stay with very, very excellent technology. Sometimes they're the very best. And those times when they're not the very best, they're often second best or certainly close enough so that their customers feel like they've got some really good technology in their hands. And that is how I think about Cardano and technology. They have very good technology. They have a very wonderful community. They have a wonderful, wonderful corporate mission, which, again, they're not a corporation. They're a blockchain, which is something different. It's basically just a piece of computer programming. However, the designers are very devoted to this idea of bettering the world, and this has created this wonderful community around Cardano. And these are extremely brilliant computer programmers, so their technology is very likely to be very, very good for a very, very long time. If it's not the best, it's going to be the second best or close enough to make people's experiences with the blockchain a very high quality experience. And like Apple, they're very focused on what Apple calls the user experience. Cardano is very devoted to this idea. They want this to be a blockchain for everyone. It's that egalitarian idea we talked about in probably our first show. One of the reasons we think Christians are going to love blockchain is that the same way Jesus made it clear that God is for everyone, that salvation is for everyone if you'll accept it. Similarly, Cardano is a blockchain that isn't just for people that know how to run computers really well. They want it to be a blockchain for everyone. And that's why their community is so enthusiastic. So we are bullish on Cardano on this show. We like it a whole lot. And so it's not a surprise that it's going to come up in a lot of our shows. That said, it is also possible that technology will end up being what decides whether a blockchain gets adopted and ends up getting used a whole lot and becoming very valuable or not. And when it comes to technology, there are some very exciting newer blockchains that I thought I would talk about today. And also today, we decided we would do our best to talk a little bit about how to get involved in the blockchain space. So we'll be addressing that as well. So with regard to technology, I want to explain that last time we talked about how Ethereum is sort of like a 1940s Packard, and they've tried to figure out ways to make it faster by putting side chains and shard chains on it, and that does seem to work. It does speed up Ethereum, but that the layer one, the base layer of Ethereum, is still built on a primitive technology by today's standards. And as it turns out, at one point, Ethereum promised that they were going to replace that blockchain with a brand new layer one. And they may have tried to do that, but it's not easy to do that. And so it turns out they've decided they're never going to do it. It's always going to be the same primitive layer one in Ethereum. And it's anybody's guess as to whether those layer two solutions actually are able to solve the problem or not. But what that does mean is that when you build a dApp on Ethereum 2, that's actually a third layer. So the second layer is the side chain that enables a quicker dApp. And then you put another dApp on it. So now you'd have 3 layers running on Ethereum. A solution to that would be to rewrite the entire blockchain, which is what Cardano has done. It's also what Polkadot has done. And for the record, Polkadot has done it in a very unique way, very interesting circular design that they use for their blockchain. Today, though, I thought I would talk about one of the ultimate layer one solutions. And what's interesting about this blockchain is that they've really built it from the ground up in some very unique ways. And because they've gone so deep in terms of their restructuring of this particular blockchain, it's sometimes called a layer 0 solution. So, yep, that's right. And this is Avalanche. And I'm going to let you know right now, Rick, I'm very impressed with this technology. The wisdom and the intelligence that went into developing this layer 0 blockchain of Avalanche is beyond impressive. It's probably the most significant technological innovation that has occurred in blockchain technology since Bitcoin was developed. And that's saying a lot. That's right. Wow is right. And it really is impressive. And I do understand what the technology is. It does get a little bit difficult to explain, but it has to do with the way that it ensures that everybody on the network is behaving properly and recording information accurately. And instead of testing a majority of sites, it uses a randomized process to create several instantaneous samples of results. And the results of those samples is what confirms that people are, in fact, recording information accurately. And they use a statistically valid and very efficient sampling process so that the results are perfect every single time. But as you can imagine, it's much, much more efficient. And when I say efficient, you have to think faster. It's much, much faster to do a few quick samples than it would be to count half or more of a sample of an entire population of nodes every single time. And so what Avalanche does is on an extremely randomized basis, it takes some rapid random samples, and these samples happen sequentially. It gets complicated, but the point is it's a really fast and really, really workable solution that really does work perfectly every time. And that's why they call it a level 0 solution, because at the basest level you could possibly get to, Avalanche is different and it's much, much faster. There are actually 3 chains to the Avalanche blockchain: the A chain, the B chain, and the C chain, and each one has a slightly different function, and they're built to work together. And collectively, they represent a level 1 solution. And so what that means is that if you build an application on Avalanche, it starts running much, much faster than even a level 2 solution would be able to run on Ethereum. And I'm going to go ahead and say this, and it almost hurts me to say it, but it probably would also run faster than it would on Cardano. And so don't get me wrong. The technology at Cardano is fantastic. It really, really is. I want to say good things about Cardano technology, but if there's a blockchain out there that might win the technology race, it probably is Avalanche. And I do think that it makes some sense for folks to be aware of this. If you're someone that thinks that the community is what's going to carry the day, and it really could, think brand loyalty, think people buying Apple computers just because they like the company, that's Cardano. And it makes a lot of sense, along with a lot of really good technology and a lot of really good people. If you're a person that thinks that, oh boy, I think the best technology wins, first of all, you're right. Sometimes the best technology does win. NVIDIA chips are the fastest chips, and they sell really, really well. And people that found the best in class technology and invested in it early in NVIDIA made an awful lot of money on that investment. Well, I'm here to tell you, Avalanche is possibly the best technology in blockchain, and I wanted to let our users know about it. So I don't know where that particular concept of superior technology or wisdom or using intelligence or good reason fits in with Christianity, but if anybody knows, it's you, Pastor Rick. So what does the Bible tell us about the smartest guy might win?
Well, Alex, the Bible does tell us in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, to study to show thyself approved by unto God, and a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. This is the King James, and it's rightly dividing the word of truth. Now, we know that studying the scriptures and actually listening to God's word is what makes us as Christians really invincible. When Jesus was tempted 3 times, Satan came to him and gave him an opportunity to fall into a trap. And each time, what the Lord did was to quote scripture. And so that's the fascinating thing, is he didn't say, oh, I know better myself. He said, this is what the scripture says. And so he gave us that example that we can follow. And so this also applies in secular situations, in anything really. If we're working on a job, we certainly want to be able to do the best job that we can. And a lot of times that means studying to know more about our field. Whatever it is we choose to do, we should know the most that we can. Now, it's interesting that you brought up the idea of a different solution that these folks came up with, and how like you said, it could be the community that wins out or the technology. It made me think of, Linux is one of those versions of that. All the smartest computer people that I know love Linux, and that's what they that's their go-to system, right? It's not, they don't do Windows, they don't do Apple, they want to be doing Linux. But that's not necessarily the most user-friendly or the easiest for everyone to understand. It's just the way it is. And so it is interesting to me that, we have to choose. It's just like in terms of the Bible translation that you read. I just use the King James Version, but a lot of times people like to use a version that's a little more user-friendly. There's very good translations that, I won't go into all of that today, but there are other ones which just they bring out the meaning of the scripture in a way that's much more accessible for most people. If you're familiar with the King James Version and you grew up with it or something like that, then you might say, oh, sure, that makes so much sense to me. But sometimes people who are just starting to read the Bible as an adult, haven't read it throughout their entire life, they start to read that 16th century English, and they're kind of like, wait a minute, what? What is all this? What does this all mean? And so a lot of times you get them a version like the New Living Translation, and it just opens up everything. And there's, again, if you're going to do doctrinal studies, there's a lot of debate about what's the best version. And some people think the King James is the best, and other people don't. But it's just like that. So tell us a little more about, is there a coin that goes with Avalanche?
Yes,
just curious about that.
Yes, there is, Rick. So the coin is called AVAX. AVAX is the ticker symbol, and with that discussion. And what that means, by the way, since there's a crypto, is that all of these blockchains function based on a cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency is basically the smallest unit of transaction on the blockchain, so that you can almost think of the cryptocurrency as being the fuel that makes the blockchain work. This will eventually be very familiar to everyone. However, for now, this is a pretty foreign concept, and it brings up the issue of cryptocurrency. It brings up the opportunity that people have to invest in cryptocurrency. And anytime I say the word invest, that will bring up our disclaimer so that everybody's entirely clear. I am a crypto enthusiast, but I am not an investment professional, and neither is Pastor Rick. We are not here giving investment advice, and it's very important that you not take anything that we say as investment advice. We're here to educate. We're here to reach folks with the message of the fact that blockchain is coming. We're particularly interested in reaching Christians with this information because we believe that blockchain is a technology with world transformative powers, and we want to make sure that Christians are part of this discussion, are aware of what's happening, because it has gotten to a point where the critical mass behind blockchain is as substantial as the critical mass that was behind the internet in the late 1990s. This is a phenomenon that is happening. It will be coming to all of our smartphones, all of our computers, all of our financial transactions, probably within the next 5 years, if not much sooner. And we want Christians to be aware that this change is afoot, and that will hopefully help this transformation be perhaps disruptive in a positive way, as opposed to disruptive in a negative way. Unlike the internet revolution, we can see this one coming, and we have the internet to disseminate information about it well in advance of it actually setting in. And so that's the nature of our mission. It certainly is not to give investment advice, but for people who are interested enough to dip their toe in the water with regard to these cryptocurrencies, the first thing to do would be to research the cryptocurrency. A very good resource for doing that would be a website like coinmarketcap.com. And you can look at the historical price. You can look at some of the designers of the blockchain that you're interested in investing in. You can look at what it's used for, what the future looks like for it, as far as what at least the founders expect it to be used for. All that type of research can be done first. Then to actually buy some of the cryptocurrency, basically understand that you're making a type of bet at that point. And you're basically gambling that you say, for example, Avalanche, you hear that it's some pretty nifty technology, which it is, and you've decided that you'd like to buy, let's just say, 10 Avalanche coins for maybe, I don't know, $14 a piece. Well, that's going to be $140. And how do you do it? Well, we at that point would need to get onto a crypto exchange. Now, there are a very large number of crypto exchanges. And in most states, most exchanges are legal. There are a couple of states, Hawaii in particular, where it's very difficult to use exchanges. But you might have to go to your bank and wire money to one of these exchanges. You want to make sure that the exchange you're using is a reputable exchange. There are several reputable exchanges that I could name. Let's see, I think there's CoinDesk and there's Binance. There's also KuCoin.com, and there's also Kraken, that's Kraken.com. There's even an app on your smartphone that you can get called Crypto.com. Crypto.com is probably the single easiest way to get started because it works right off of your iPhone. And for the first 30 days, they will allow you to use your bank card, your ATM card from your bank for free. They won't charge you for the first month. And you can actually use your bank card to buy crypto on Crypto.com. Now, once you've bought the crypto, it will stay on exchanges. And it stays on there the same way that if you buy a stock, it stays on schwab.com or something like that. But unlike a stock exchange like Schwab, on a crypto exchange, you would have the option of withdrawing it to a hard crypto wallet. And I happen to be carrying a hard crypto wallet right now, and I'll just show it to our viewers. For those folks who have never seen it, it looks quite a lot like a jump drive, and it opens up the way some of these drives do. You've probably seen jump drives that are similar. This happens to be called a Ledger Nano, but there are other jump drives there are other crypto wallets that are equally good. By the way, we don't have any endorsements on the show, so this is not a paid promotion for crypto.com or for Ledger hard wallets. We don't do any of that sort of thing here. But the point is, you can actually take possession of your coins, and once you've got them, nobody else can take them from you without you giving them permission to do so.
Okay, so let me just break in for a second there. So, in essence, what you're saying is you can start with having your crypto that you purchase on online, in essence, on like we said, like on a Schwab, in a brokerage, as it were, and then or a bank in that sense. Now, what you're saying is then you can now, in essence, download your crypto to your hard drive or your jump drive, and then have it there. Now, how would you transfer it back? Is that the same idea that you just would send it online to whoever you wanted to give it to for if you were purchasing something? Is that how that works?
So you would have a computer that has a computer program on it, and that computer program would interface with your hard wallet. And so when you connect the hard wallet to the computer, at that point, you could then follow a few commands and get your crypto onto your computer, and then you could send it back to an exchange. Okay. And on an exchange, you could sell it for money and then ask that the exchange put that money back into your bank account. So it's all fairly seamless. It's new for people, and that's why crypto adoption is so small right now. Now, this is also where the investment opportunity comes from, is that most people have never done such a thing. They listen to what I just talked about, and it sounds mystifying. It sounds like something they've never done. And that is why it's such a big opportunity. So, for example, we've been talking about AVAX. Let's just stick with it. There are only 500 million AVAX coins in the world, and there will never be more than 500 million. So it's not like the US dollar where they can just print more whenever they want. There are only 500 million AVAX tokens in the world, and there will never be more. And so what that means is that if more and more dollars begin being transacted on the Avalanche network, if Avalanche lands a very large type of international money exchange, for example, let's just say Western Union decides, oh, wow, this is so fast, we have to go with this best-in-class technology, Avalanche. From now on, we'll just send all our money through Avalanche. Well, Western Union is going to be transferring billions and billions and billions of dollars every year all around the world. And if they're using the Avalanche blockchain, that means that each one of those avalanches is going to be worth a whole lot more than it's selling for now. The Avalanche blockchain only went live in September of 2020, so it's a brand new chain. It has generated a fair amount of excitement because of the better technology, but adoption is at a very low level right now. Very few people transact on the chain. And when I say very few, I mean it's just a few $100 million a day or something like that. However, it has the potential for carrying even more than $1 trillion. It can actually handle trillions and trillions of dollars worth of transactions, at which point, if that ever happens, the cryptocurrency itself is going to be worth an extraordinary amount of money. In other words, each transaction would be accomplished with a tiny little fraction of one Avalanche coin, so that if you actually owned a whole coin, it would be worth a whole lot of money. Now, I want to be absolutely clear that no one knows what blockchain is going to be adopted and what blockchain is not going to be adopted. I do think Avalanche is a very good bet because the technology is so good, but there certainly is no guarantee. And so because of that, and now that we've started talking to our listeners about the possibility of purchasing cryptocurrency for themselves, and there's a number of different reasons that they might want to do this. We'll be reviewing all those in future videos. But before we get there, I do want to introduce some basic ideas around investing. This is not investment advice. This is just some general education. And it includes avoiding the fear of missing out phenomenon. They call it FOMO for short, and it's very, very common with new crypto investors. Somebody's been listening to this video, and they're now extremely excited about Avalanche. They think Avalanche with the best technology is going to be amazing, and they feel like they need to get lots of money into Avalanche right away. Well, that's forgetting the fact that the crypto markets are extremely volatile. They're extremely volatile for a number of very basic reasons that won't be going anywhere for years. So these volatile markets are going to go way up and way down and way up and way down and way up and way down. And so what you want to be careful of is that you're not putting all of your money in today when a big crash is coming tomorrow. And the way around that, of course, is to do something we call dollar cost averaging. It's very boring. It's designed to be boring. It's also designed to be safe. And what dollar cost averaging means is deciding on, let's say, a goal for the year. You'd like to buy $500 worth of Avalanche in a single year. And so you would set aside $48 a month. And each month, on the 5th day of the month, you buy $48 worth of Avalanche. And at the end of the year, your dollar cost average would represent the average price of Avalanche for that year in most cases, as opposed to it being, oh, you bought it on the worst day and then it collapsed, or you bought it on the best day and it went crazy. As we've discussed previously on this channel, markets have a very hard time pricing innovation. And so the markets can be very volatile for that reason. There's also a lot of new developments that happen in the crypto space. And those developments make news, and the news can send the markets very high and also very low. And there are a lot of also unexpected events that happen. So recently, for example, the government has become increasingly, the US government has become increasingly interested in crypto. A while back, the government of China banned all cryptocurrency for a while, and the markets crashed. And then we realized that you can't really ban cryptocurrency, and so the markets recovered more. And then the US government weighs in on some things, and people will just sell on this kind of bad news. And then they find out that, a nationwide chain of sandwich shops is now accepting Bitcoin, and they'll go buy, and it just sends the markets up and down and up and down. And so one thing we want to make sure that our listeners know, our viewers, is that there is no rush. You don't have to go cash in your savings bonds and jump into the market. If you are interested, there could be amazing opportunities for people who get this information early, prior to the blockchain revolution really happening. The revolution has not happened yet. The technology's developed, but it has not come to fruition in any reasonable extent so far. We estimate that we're at about 2% crypto adoption right now, meaning that about 2% of the world has participated in crypto, bought or sold some. And we expect that number to go much, much higher. We expect it to be 20% in less than 5 years. And I believe that within 10 years, it'll probably be a number much closer to 100% than 20%. And when that happens, there will be blockchains that are available for dollars and cents today that are going to be extremely valuable at that time. And so it does make some sense to look at this space. And for people who get interested in blockchain and want to be a part of it, I think it's an interesting opportunity to start buying some and seeing what happens. But this has to be money that you can afford to lose. We certainly want to encourage responsible behavior, dollar cost averaging, being prepared for prices to go into the toilet, and then also to come out and rise into stratospheric heights, and just being aware that this kind of market action is typical of a new market for a new technology.
Right. Well, Alex, I'll just jump in and say, it's like we spoke about before. The Bible does say to, work diligently during the day, and then, of course, also plant your seed during the day, as it says, and then also do work at night and kind of, in essence, have a side hustle. And so, of course, that's something that we should do. We should be prepared to work hard at our job, but then also keep our day job, but also work hard on something else, because the Bible says you don't know which will prosper, or both. And so that's the way it is. I mean, you could do very well in your job, but then if you do your investing on the side and be patient, like you're talking about, being smart about it, investing, even if it's high, you still invest it, and even if it's low, you still invest that same amount over a period of time. And then that average, ultimately, if you, like you're saying, I mean, it might take another 5 years, but at that point, you'll be able to actually see where things stand with it. And, whether you've, like you're saying, if someone can afford to say, well, in 5 years, this $500 I have, I'm sure I'm not going to necessarily really need it 5 years from now for, living expenses, then go ahead, take that opportunity and take a look at it and see if you want to invest. That does make a lot of sense. And I do believe that is a biblical principle, that we should be aware of the opportunities that are out there and take advantage of them when we think that makes sense for us.
That's right. Very good. I'm glad that you feel that way, Rick. And the other thing that you and I agree on is that you always want to put your faith in Jesus Christ and not put your faith in a blockchain or me or Rick or anyone else.
Exactly.
We're all here together under God. And if you put your faith in God and you put Him first, and you put practicing principles that are espoused in the Bible first, whether crypto goes up or down will mean a lot less to you, and it won't be as important. And that's very important to get our priorities straight so that we can avoid those greed traps, including fear of missing out, including, feeling like you've got some inside information and you need to, sell the farm to get into crypto. We certainly don't recommend that kind of action. On the other hand, for those folks who do feel moved to get involved, we do encourage responsible behavior and responsible research and responsible interest in the crypto space.
I know that discipline and consistency are two words I hear a lot about when you hear investors who've been in that business a long time and have done well over time. That's the kind of thing they talk about, to have the discipline to go through those times when the market does go down, and be willing to invest then and then, because sometimes that's the best time to invest, even if it's gone very far down. That can be a very good opportunity. It's like in essence, things are on sale, and then later on everything moves up. Now, Alex, I know a little while back you mentioned, I want to bring this out again, you said that Bitcoin in essence is a very basic type of technology, and the way that works is that it really is only possible to use it for in essence monetary transactions. Like you want to purchase something, so in essence it's like a dollar. We can certainly fund a legal agreement with that currency, but we couldn't actually, in essence, write a contract on the blockchain like in the sense of Bitcoin. And that's what I wanted to make sure that listeners, if they didn't hear one of our prior episodes, understand that one of the technological disadvantages of Bitcoin is that it can only be used for transactions, and you can't actually bring the element of contracts into it, which obviously you're talking about Ethereum and Avalanche and these more advanced technologies. And that is going to, at least in my mind, we know Bitcoin's has been adopted by a large number of cryptocurrency users, but there is a limitation on that in the long run, and that there's going to be a lot more advantage to these newer technologies, I think. Is that correct?
That is correct. There are some fundamental limitations built into the blockchain that is Bitcoin. And I want to be clear that it does what it does quite well. It does the identification task very, very well. So it's not possible to counterfeit a Bitcoin. And so I don't want people to think that I'm saying that Bitcoin is bad. Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and it's an incredibly innovative technology. However, the blockchain itself has a number of almost unavoidable limitations. And one of the unavoidable limitations is the transaction speed. You're looking at 15 minutes per Bitcoin block, and that is just extremely slow by modern transaction standards. You know, on Avalanche, you would be hoping for something in excess of 60,000 transactions per second. So we're really talking about, you know, an incredibly much more advanced blockchain when you're looking at these brand new, from ground up, level zero types of solutions like Avalanche. Cardano also, by the way, built to be much faster, much more scalable than Bitcoin. Bitcoin also is a proof of work blockchain that is going to have to burn coal in order to make blocks. And all the modern blockchains, Cardano, Polkadot, Avalanche, these are all proof of stake blockchains. And we'll probably have to talk about those details in the next show. But it's hard to imagine Bitcoin being able to even begin to address all of the areas of advancement that are possible through blockchain. It's very difficult to imagine Bitcoin achieving that on that particularly very large. It's also the largest blockchain because that's the most number of blocks, which means it's now at a very cumbersome size, over 300 gigabytes of information. And moving that around, it's very cumbersome. At some point, where are you going to store it? We've talked about it being decentralized, but it becomes so big that there's no way to store it in a decentralized way. So there's a lot of long-term problems with blockchain, and I will openly admit that I'm not a long-term Bitcoin bull. I'm not saying that Bitcoin won't go up in value, almost certainly will, but it is not where I believe the long-term future of blockchain technology lies. And
now,
so you did pick up on that correctly.
Good, good. And I'm just curious because what came up for me while you were talking about that was I have this idea that maybe Bitcoin in essence is going to be like a collector's item in the future. It's going to be something like, wow, you know, I got in at Bitcoin and, you know, and so here I have this amount of Bitcoin and it's worth a lot because it was the first, you know, it's like having whatever, you know, something from a long currency or some coin or end up being, you know, they're a penny or a dime is worth a whole lot more than that at face value because it's so rare. And in essence, I think that's what I sort of see with Bitcoin is that I mean, I'm not talking in the next 5 to 10 years, but maybe 30 or 40 years down the road, it might be that way.
That's right. And so I don't discourage people from buying Bitcoin. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't think it's a good investment. It all just depends on what you think of as being a good investment. And probably next show, we should talk much more about tokenomics and what crypto returns can look like. So, you know, for example, Bitcoin may well double in price in the next year, but by crypto standards, that's not a very good return. And I know that some people are listening to that going, what do you mean? Doubling your money in a year? That sounds great. Well, okay, it might sound great to you, but for somebody who's well-versed in the crypto space, we're looking for returns that are frankly much larger than that. And so, so I'm not opposed to Bitcoin, and I don't want to sound like I'm ripping on Bitcoin. It's also true that I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I don't think it's the blockchain of the future. I think that there are other blockchains that will come up and really address some of the human problems we've talked about on this show. But I'm afraid that may have to wait until our next show, Rick. But I'll let you know this. I'll really look forward to that next show.
I definitely will too. I'm every time you mention some new item that I haven't really heard much about, I'm always excited to think, oh, that's great. Can't wait till we can get back together again. So thanks so much for your time, Alex. We do appreciate all your knowledge, and we'll talk to you soon.